better tomorrow for the next generation. Throughout that process, we have been asked many questions, such as what strengths do we have as a community? What is something that is non-negotiable about our community and that we wouldn't want taken away? And what do you see are some barriers that we have for growth? Well, today marks what we hope will become a regularly, everyday conversation regarding issues of diversity, equity, acceptance, and understanding. To some, these issues aren't easily talked about, but that's okay. We're all here to listen and not to criticize, condemn, or complain, to steal a line from Steve Briggs. Thank you very much. It's vital that we start these conversations because that they're necessary in order to grow our community, in order to diversify industry, and especially expand our capacity for increase in tourism. I'd like to thank Tim Brown for setting up all our tables that you will see later. Our committee members, if you could please stand. We had a number of committee members from our community and staff and faculty and students that helped us organize this event. And I would like to thank you all. These community members are also our facilitators for this evening's conversation. And so immediately following our keynote speaker, Henry Boucher's talk, help yourself to some food and some beverage right outside the doors, and enjoy them within one of the classrooms that are located right around the theater. If you watch for one of the community members, you'll be able to follow them into one of the classrooms, but they're all the classrooms within this building here. And our facilitators are going to make sure that each conversation remains respectful, and I would like to invite Steve Briggs up to talk about something else that we placed in the rooms.
Thank you, Brad. Bonjour. My name is Stephen Briggs. I'm well, I coughed at that time and it was all. But anyway, I've asked about the culture and stuff like that. In each room, you're going to see a feather. And that feather has been taken care of by my beautiful wife, Diane. And it's for non-interruptive conversation. We're going to go into areas that may be sensitive to other people and perceptions. So, you know, when we do that, we talk about perceptions, neither right nor wrong, good or bad. They're perceptions. We have perceptions about our community, our family members, and other things like that. But, you know, the feather will be, if we do get into very uncomfortable positions, sometimes we have to hand this feather and then give that person an opportunity to speak without being interrupted. This is an old tradition that goes back a long time in our culture. And it helps to respect that non-interruptive thought pattern for our people. Sometimes, you know, dealing with sensitive issues or issues that we may not even know that are here in our community, we're able, and once we get in that thought pattern, we don't want to interrupt that. And, you know, we want to express ourselves to our fullest. We'd like to make sure that there's no judgment going on with this concept. We'd like to have open communications so that we can see where we really stand. And a lot of this is for our groups, the people that are within these groups, to discover themselves and see what's holding them back. So, I mean, it's really crucial that we take an inventory of ourselves while we talk about things that may be uncomfortable to us and where we got that information. Then I'll give it back to Brad.
Thank you, Steve. Also, in each room, you will see an essay that our students and community members have written and we've typed up anonymously and posted them on the wall. So I highly encourage you all to read some of those essays of good experiences and some not so good experiences within our own community. They're very insightful, and I highly recommend that you read some of those. After our conversation, hopefully we'll be wrapping up around 7:45. That's my goal. And we plan on reporting back out to the group as a whole from each group. So facilitators, please be prepared to at least say one thing that your group brainstormed or talked about. And then we should be all done by 8 o'clock. That's my plan. Okay, now, as you all know, and from the fantastic story that was in the paper on Saturday, thank you, Emily Getty, Henry Boucher has agreed to come and speak with us, and it's a great honor to have you on our campus, so thank you very much. And instead of me trying to remember all the amazing facts of Henry's life and how he came to be and how he got here today, we have a wonderful video that I'm going to play instead. So again, thank you all for coming, and hopefully my technical difficulties won't happen.
Or cough.
Or yeah, right?
Joke.
Video of a video. I don't know how that works.
Welcome back to Live to the Max. Henry Boucher's promising hockey life came to an end at an early age. He struggled after that, but he's found himself and found that he has a calling to give back to his culture. He was born on the Canadian border in War Road, Minnesota. 1,500 hockey-crazy folks where he was introduced to the game as a sibling.
We played road hockey with take-up Zeus camp. I was 5 years old when my older brothers and sisters came in the house because they needed a goalie, and my mother dressed me up and sent me out there, and I stood in goal, and I came in the house all welted up, black and blue, but I enjoyed the heck out of myself.
What happened that day was nourished 5 years later, when he won a youth sales contest that allowed him to cross the border to Winnipeg, Canada, and watch Detroit play Toronto in an NHL game.
It was the first time I actually saw the uniform in color.
Changes,
Detroit,
doesn't it?
yeah. Changed the whole perspective of the game and how huge the arena.
There was a star on the horizon, one that first lit up Minnesota when he led his team to a state high school tournament.
Well, Henry was a tremendous talent, and looking at him in the state high school tournament, he actually was as good a player as I've ever seen in the state high school tournament. He was that good.
What do you remember about playing the state high school tournament?
Well, I was overwhelmed just to be down there. We had very, very seldom coming into the city, let alone playing in front of 16,000 people.
He was fast-tracking, the talk of the state during the spot of the 1972 silver medal Olympic team. And eventually was drafted by the team he watched play his first professional game, the Detroit Red Wings.
And right out in front, here's the pass for Boucher, he scores! Henry Boucher.
Who is this Henry Boucher?
Well, that one there is certainly embarrassing right now.
You were styling back then, I bet this was groovy then, huh? He would return to Minnesota for a dream come true, to play for the North Stars.
Well, we were excited about Henry coming to the team for a couple of reasons. One, because he was a very good hockey player. He was going to help us on the ice. Secondly, he was a local boy that was an attraction, and at that time, we weren't drawn very well. So he was an added incentive for people to come to the games, and we felt that having him on a team was going to make us a better team.
You know, I always wanted to come home and play with the North Stars, but I felt that I wanted to play with my favorite team. I felt that I needed to prove myself in the National Hockey League. But coming back to Minnesota was, absolutely special. I was enjoying every game.
But his promising career ended in an instant. The night Boston's Dave Forbes used his stick as a weapon, it took it to Boucher's face and eye. A puddle of blood told the story.
I got popped pretty well with, with the butt of the stick, and I knew I was hurt, at that time, but I didn't know to what extent. I was cut 30 stitches over the eye, and it blew my cheekbone out. The swelling was so massive that it took me over a week for my eye to open up. And then I knew that there was something wrong because the floor was not level.
His career ended at the age of 25, and his life took a turn for the worse.
There were times of, extreme depression. You live in that self-pity. Even after I went ahead and retired from hockey when I was 25, and I went through a tremendous amount of depression, self-pity. Where do I go from here? What do I do? And it affected everybody around me.
He healed through family support, and in the process reconnected with his culture. A culture dismissed by his generation in the late 60s.
And when I was growing up, nobody wanted to be Indian because of the depiction of the movies during those times of Indians being stupid and drunk and ignorant, and I didn't want to learn my language. I didn't want to learn my culture or traditions. I think, with family, later on in life when Dennis Banks and those guys took over Wounded Knee, that it made the Indians stand up and take notice, and we were able to bring our culture and traditions back.
He moved to Alaska in 2007, seeking a place where he could find peace in himself, and he found it.
It's the absolute beauty, the stunning beauty of Alaska. Maybe I was looking for a place to go and meditate and looking for that mountaintop everybody looks for.
While spending time in Alaska, he created an idea, a book and a documentary, to chronicle 21 Native Americans that have participated in the Olympics, a place to find pride.
Now there's 21 of us. I always felt that this series would be a tremendous asset for all of us.
That is what is important across the country. On reservations, they are reviving the heritage of their people, celebrating lives that had been forgotten.
We were a broken people. All of that, the clan system, the traditions and culture were taken away, but were never forgotten. We had to practice our stuff in the woods and away from the general public, but now we can share the culture and the traditions and teach it.
His life has come full circle, but you cannot help but think what could have been as a hockey player.
He'd have been a tremendous player. He'd have been an excellent player. Whether he'd been good enough to be an all-star, I'm not quite sure. He was that level, but he was close to it. And
that fateful night, he has made peace with it for his own sake.
Through time and through some self-healing and getting back to my roots as a Native American and finding my spirituality, certainly part of that is forgiving. So
it's a tough part of it, isn't it?
Sure. So I, over the years, have forgiven him, but I've never talked to him, and he's never contacted me, or our paths have never crossed.
Life to the Max is brought to you by Life Touch, photography for a lifetime.
Well, thank you very much. It's really an honor for me to be here tonight to be a part of this whole community healing. The opportunities that you guys have tonight are going to last a lifetime, hopefully. You guys will get some great insight on community development, community healing, community caring, and how life should be in a small community like International Falls. As you see in the video, I was born and raised in Warren, Minnesota. My English name is Henry Boucher. My Indian name is Ogidjada. It was given to me by Roger Jourdain, a longtime chairman at Red Lake, and it means warrior or leader. And that was my first one. And in our Indian culture, we can have more than one name. I was also given a name by Lloyd Brass, who was a longtime medicine man up in Saskatchewan. He gave me a name, Wapi Mahigan, which means white wolf. And more recently, Fred Kelly from Onigaming, we were up in Winnipeg, and he gave me my third name. And it's Kijan Nunge, which means one that sits at the center of the universe, the feathered one that sits at the center of the universe.
talking to the other spirits about kindness. And I am honored to have all three of those names. I use those in our pipe ceremonies and ceremonies when and of course when I speak. I am a pipe carrier. I am a Makwa Dotem, or bear clan, and I come from Kabekanan, which is the Indian word for warlord. I'm enrolled up at Northwest Angle Band 37 on Lake of the Woods, so I'm a dual citizen. Growing up in Warroad, back in the 50s, certainly, a small community back then, probably 800 to 1,000 people, and we took care of each other there. There were a few Indian families there. Racism really wasn't an issue, but you always heard some of the subtle remarks when somebody didn't know you were there and they were talking about the Indian community, and those things hurt. And of course, I didn't want to learn my culture or traditions because of the depiction of the John Wayne movies, the westerns that we had, and I just refused to learn my culture and traditions at that time. It wasn't until later on you saw my eye injury happen to me when I was 23 years old with the North Stars against the Boston Bruins. I really went into a tailspin about a year and a half after that, when I realized that I couldn't play at the level that I had been playing at. And I kind of bounced around. I did drugs. I drank a lot. I went through a divorce. It was really a trying time when you go through that depression, when you go through that self-pity. And I was out there and I was blaming hockey for all of my problems, but realistically it was myself. And I didn't realize at that time that hockey was so great, for me. I got to play with U.S. teams, travel to Bucharest, Romania, travel to Prague, played the World Championships in Bucharest, played the World Championships in Switzerland, played the Olympics in Sapporo, Japan, played in the National Hockey League, a boyhood dream of mine. You kind of lose perspective and you lose sight of all of that. So after my eye injury, and I was drinking and drugging, and I kind of moved myself out to Idaho, and I was just hunting and I was fishing, which isn't all bad, but I was doing a lot of drinking at that time too. What really brought me back to my roots in my hometown was the fact that I started believing, and I was searching for my spirituality. I was searching for something that I really didn't know anything about because I didn't learn my culture and traditions. I was brought up as a Lutheran. I was baptized as a Lutheran, went through confirmation and all that, but I got away from all of that. All of the good things that life offers you. And I was in that self-pity and depression, and I was walking in the mountains one spring, and just on a hike up there, there were some snowbanks around, and I just had to get away, and had to get some fresh air, and I walked around this one corner, and I found a whole golden eagle that had died over the winter. And I knew at that point, something, it was significant for me for some reason that I found that. I knew that the Great Spirit, the messenger from the Great Spirit to the people is the eagle. That much I did know. I didn't know much else about the culture. Like I said, I didn't want to learn it. But I picked that thing up and I brought it down to my home on the creek down there, and really didn't know what to do with it. So I gave it to the DNR. They were going to give it to the University of Idaho to have it examined to see why it died. But in the back of my mind, I thought it was significant. And I knew something might happen. And I needed change. I needed some positive change in my life, and I didn't know where it was going to come from. And that fall, I was with Elaine. She was from Warroad also, and we decided to go to Warroad to attend the Thanksgiving and Christmas time with the family. And I was there no more than a couple of days, and my oldest daughter, Tara, from my first marriage, called me up and said, "Dad, I'm not getting along with my mom." And she said that, I could come and live with you now. But I want you to move back to Warroad. I want you to move back so I can come and live with you, go to school in Warroad. And I was surprised, and I was overwhelmed for the fact that, I could start parenting again. It was that sign that I was looking for in my lifetime to make that positive change. So I said, sure. I had no place to live there at that time, so I rented an apartment right away. She wanted to move in 2 or 3 days. And so I threw some furniture together, some pots and pans. All my stuff was out in Idaho, and I didn't have time to go get it. So I made a home for her. I registered her in school. I became a parent. I had that responsibility. And that's basically what I was looking for. But then again, I 2 weeks later, I was asked to, coach. I think it was a Pee Wee B team. And so I got my skates out again, and I started coaching. And then a couple of weeks after that, I was asked to serve on the Indian Parent Committee as a board member. And all of these things started to change in a positive way, and that's what community is all about, is people stepping forward. Once they see that you're willing to learn, willing to come back, willing to be a part of a community, the love and the, the companionship and the life challenges that I had the year before seemed insignificant. And it started to change my way about the way I thought about my hockey career. You start forgiving. You step up to the community efforts of everybody involved that make a community what it is. You start volunteering. You get into some of the decision making. So it really pulled me out, and that's what really changed my life back in 1986. 85, 86, somewhere in that area. But, I wouldn't have been here today if it hadn't been for Tara making that call, hadn't been for me finding that eagle. It allowed me to take it a step further. I was Indian Education Director at Warren Public Schools in the early 90s. And it taught me, when kids would come up and ask me a question about our culture and traditions and I didn't know it, I'd have to go find out so I could tell them. And expand their curiosity and as well as mine. So it was a tremendous time for me, and I continued to be a part of the community in that respect. Working in the Indian Education Department, I got my real estate license in '87. Bought a house, got involved with the NHL Diversity Task Force. We started programs inner city. For the Hispanics, the Blacks, the American Indian people, so they could enjoy the great game of hockey also. We fundraised, we taught communities how to bring things like that together. It was really an honor to be able to work with that level of people and to come back from that darkness and that disparity that I was going through at that time. And it was, community. And I have a book that I wrote while I was up in Anchorage, Alaska, and it's part of a series that I'm doing called Native American Olympians. And I was just going to write a story for that series. And my idea of this whole series came in 1992 when we were honored in Albuquerque as one of 10 Native Americans. There was only 4 of us living at that time. Jesse Rennick, who was probably 92, he ran in the 32 games in LA. Buster Charles, who played in 48 games, he was in his 80s. Billy Mills, who won a gold medal in '64. And then myself, who won a silver medal in 1972 in Sapporo. Grace Thorpe was there with Jim Thorpe's medals. It was a tremendous honor to be able to visit with those people. And I didn't realize that there were so few at that time. And that's where I got the idea of doing a television series called Native American Olympians. And I thought this would be great for our Indian people, great educational tool for all of us. Not only that, it'd be a great motivation for our kids, and any kids of color that wanted to move on to bigger and better things, that have dreams and goals and you know, just needed that positive influence, you know, at some point in your life. One of the stories in my book, I was probably 8 years old, and I didn't have a pair of skates. I broke my blade on my skating on the river. And John Parker was the head of the World Hockey Association at the time. He was the game warden over there. Just a tremendous guy, you know, and we had our first game up at the Ward Arena, and I never showed up. I didn't have a pair of skates, so I thought, well, I'm just not going to play this year. Because I didn't have skates and my parents couldn't afford it. And so I just passed on it. And I was sitting there, and there was a knock on the door, and here was John Parker. He goes, "Come on, what's the matter? You know, you're going to be late for the game." And I said, "Well, I'm not going to play this year because I don't have any skates." So then he says, "Well, what size do you wear?" So I told him, and about 15 minutes later, he came back with a brand new pair of skates for me. And I was ecstatic. I jumped up, got ready, and I went up to the arena. I wore those skates for a couple of years. But, you know, it's that type of community effort. And it's that type of caring people in a community that, you know, will bond you together. If it hadn't been for him, who knows whether I would have, you know, at some point went back and started playing again, or maybe I would have just did something different. Also growing up in Warroad, like I said, there was a certain amount of racism and discrimination, but it was subtle. There were times, you know, after I left Warroad and moved to Winnipeg after high school and played in Western Canada. And there were times there where we're riding on a bus and I'd break down crying because, you know, during the hockey game, we would have our, you know, our words on the ice. And, you know, and being an American playing up in Canada was difficult enough, but being an American Indian playing up there was even worse because you got ripped a lot on the ice through racial slurs and what have you. And there were times that I wanted to quit also. I just, you know, sat in the back of the bus and cried. I didn't know whether I could take it. You know, after I had my cry, you know, you stand up, you know, I fought on the ice, you know, fans would yell at you, and, you know, we went through all of that. We persevered. Perseverance is a tremendous asset when you're that young and really don't have anybody to talk to other than your teammates, and you stand together and fight and work through that adversity. But certainly, you know, it makes you stronger. It makes you a better person. And, you know, I thought at that point, you know, these guys are idiots. You know, I mean, why would they do that to, you know, to a guy that was just trying to, you know, play the game, enjoy the game of hockey. But, you know, it's a cruel world out there. You know, when you think about racism, discrimination, the prejudice is that are out there. Warroad at that time had an Indian community and had a non-native community. Now, you know, we have the Laotian community there. And, you know, when I was with Indian Ed, I tried to talk about our culture as much as possible to build those bridges of understanding through, you know, introduction of our Indian culture, whether it was to the churches, whether it was to the city council, whether it was to the Lions Club. I started a Warroad traditional powwow up there to show our community that, you know, our culture matters. We, you know, we drummed, we danced. It was a social atmosphere, and certainly it worked. It worked by communicating and by showing and telling and bringing our culture, our dance demonstrations, our crafts to different community outlets throughout Roseau County and Lake of the Woods County. And for that I'm really proud about that time of my life, and stepped it up since then. I'm Vice President of the National Coalition Against Racism in Sports and Media, and we talk about the Indian names and logo issue throughout the United States and address some of those issues that are derogatory for our culture and our traditions. And we're doing it not only for us, but we're doing it for the next 7 generations, for our kids, our grandkids, that those things need to be changed. The Washington Redskins, for example, are, a lot of people don't know why the Redskins are so derogatory for us. Do you realize that there were probably 15 million Indians that were killed since the colonization of the United States? So we were down to about 350,000 in population at one time. In 1864, I believe, was that Wounded Knee. It was sometime after that there was a count, and there were whole tribes wiped out on this genocide. And a lot of you never see that in history books. When you talk about the Redskins, we had a bounty on us. They were paid up to $200 if you brought in a dead Indian. And that was too cumbersome, so they'd have to use the ox carts to bring in the bodies to get a count and then get paid. Then they started bringing in just the heads of the men, women, and children. And then after a while, they just started scalping them and bringing in the scalps. But the redskin comes from the blood running down the faces of these men, women, and children. And that's why the name is so derogatory to the Indian people. And I'm very proud to work with Clyde Belcourt and David Glass on a lot of these issues that come about. And, as growing up in a small community like Warroad and small communities like International Falls and small communities all over the country, you have those ideals and those morals, and you do talk to each other and work things out on a smaller scale. And there are some idiots out there that still think that racism doesn't matter, prejudices don't matter. But certainly, in a community, a smaller community like ours, we can work it out through workshops like we're going to do tonight. We're talking about all kinds of roundtable discussions and problems that we all have in our communities throughout the country. And I just have to applaud the organizers, the committee, for holding a workshop like this, a public workshop that at least is a start. You have to start somewhere, and you have to have that compassion, living life and doing the right thing by addressing difficult situations that we don't ordinarily talk about. And it's going to be a great night, I believe, and I think we're going to come up with some solutions, and I think that certainly I'm just proud to be here and be a part of it. So I do have my book for sale out in the library, and I do have my display out there, my Olympic medals and my jerseys and some other things out there that once you have time just to maybe walk through it. And books are $25, and appreciate if you buy one if you don't have one. Ordinarily, I go into a question and answer period. I didn't want to go into the full hour and a half deal. I'd save Brad some sweat time, and he's promised you we'd get out of here fairly early. But so I go into a question and answer. If anybody has any questions they'd like to ask me, certainly I'd be happy to try to answer them. Yes?
said your teammates stood together with you. Did you find that consistent? Were your teammates always there for you when you were being sworn at on the ice or racial slurs? Were they always there supporting you?
Were my teammates always supporting me and stood behind me? They better. We're a team. Yeah, you know, I mean, there were some remarks you could joke around in the locker room, but you knew they didn't mean it. But, you know, when somebody confronts you like that, and you know, you have to stand there and fight or back off, and it was an intimidation factor as much as it was, you know, insulting as it was, and derogatory, and denigrating. Yes, they stood behind me, and they fought with me, and really, I was really proud of that fact, and consoled me when I wanted to quit. Anybody else? Yes.
Henry, I got one. In the paper, it had mentioned the Bridge Builders organization in Anchorage. Could you speak your involvement in that?
I lived in Anchorage, Alaska for about 7 years and was involved in bridge builders up there. And Anchorage is probably the melting pot of the world because you have Samoans there, Hawaiians, you have Koreans, Filipinos, you have Canadians, people from South America, you have Eastern Europeans, you have Europeans. Because of the mining, the gas, and the oil up there and those types of jobs, but I was just amazed that they spoke close to 100 different languages in the Anchorage School District. In order for Anchorage to cope with those type of problems that they were having, the communication problems, they started a program called Bridge Builders, where representatives from each one of the communities would be represented on that particular board. And they gave out awards. We were able to go into different communities to learn their culture, their traditions, eat their food, socialize with them as much as possible, because a lot of them didn't speak English, but they had interpreters. And it was really a community-based organization where you could go and attend and you could find out what their culture was all about. And when I speak at schools a lot, I talk about travel. You know, my God, I came from Warroad. I was 18 years old. I was playing in Western Canada. I got picked for the U.S. team to go to Bucharest, Romania. You know, I played 3 years, and then I was drafted in the Army during that time. But you know, my biggest education, I think, was being able to travel at 18, 19, 20 years old, all over the world. It just opened my eyes to how different all of these cultures are and how beautiful they are, how much you can learn from different people, and just by traveling, eating their food, trying to visit with them, trying to understand, you know, what they're all about. Playing in the Olympics was wonderful, and that's what it's all about. Nobody cared about politics. We were people just like they were. They were people just like we were. So it was a tremendous learning experience. And if you can build those bridges, and if you can open up those lines of communications and understanding your community's problems, you know, it's worthwhile.
Any other questions? Before we get started, go ahead, Ken.
Yes.
Would you say that the United States today is more or less open to diverse cultures as compared to some of the other countries you mentioned you were in?
I don't think, I think there's other countries in the world that are more open to diversity than we are. We say we are, but, you know, around every corner there's seems to be some type of racism or discrimination or prejudice that we say we don't have in this country. But, you know, you depending on what report you're looking at, but when you have, in Rapid City here recently, there were 57 Indian kids that went to a hockey game over there with Rapid City Rush. They were there because of academic achievement. And it was their first hockey game. Up above them in the box was a distributorship that gave out 25 tickets, and they were drinking beer up there and got drunk, and then they started yelling racial slurs to these kids that were 9 to 12 years old, and then they started throwing beer on them. You know, that's basically a hate crime, and those things like that really get my blood boiling, especially when you know, these kids had an opportunity to watch the great game of hockey, and we're out there, and they were actually scared after some of the racial slurs that they had to leave the game. And we went out there and protested with the Rapid City mayor and police chief and what have you. But you know, it seems to be, I don't know whether it's social media that we're hearing more about this, but it's, you know, it's alive and well. And I think in this country is, you know, we're supposed to be the leader in the world about understanding and open and respect other cultures and what have you. But seriously, there's you know, there's a lot of problems that we have, and I think it's that way all over the world. But I think there are other countries that do a better job than us, and I think that we need, as a community, to address those situations and try to communicate and understand, you know, the problems that we have, so we can live a better life and a better life for our kids. That's what it's all about. Yes.
Your eye injury certainly derailed a promising career, and by any measure was tragic. But looking back, was there some good that came from that in terms of who you became?
Absolutely. You know, you live through that adversity. You grow as a person. You learn to address, you know, the problems. You grow with your decisions. You learn to forgive. You learn to try to understand, you know, the other side. You know, that's all part of growing. And yeah, I think that, you know, I would have rather played it out. There are times that I think about that, but realistically, I think I'm a better person maybe because of that. I had to live through that tragedy and that adversity to be the person I am today. And I'm not perfect, but I'm learning every day and trying to do the right thing and try to be a better person today, more than I was yesterday.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate having us here.
Thank you very much, Henry. Well, the Rainy River Community College Diversity Committee has been wanting to put on an event like this for over 5 years now, so I'm happy to bring Henry on board and be able to pull this off. It's been a dream of our president, Sue Collins, to be able to do something like this here, and I'd like to thank also our provost that's sitting in the audience, Carol Helland, for allowing and helping bring this together today as well. Right now, a little message to our facilitators. We have 67 people in the room, and so we're going to need 8 rooms. We've got 118, 119, 104, the embassy, and 100. And then the other rooms we're going to use is the telepresence room, SC 114, the conference room down by the weight room, and the student life room, which is right in front of my office. So that's a message for the facilitators. Those are the 8 locations that we'll be at. And I believe that we have a couple of students here that would like to present something to our keynote speaker. Is that correct? All right, come on up.
Hello everyone. Here at the Rainy River Community, thanks to Brad and Sue, we'd like to present Mr. Henry Boucher a gift basket. Part of this, we have a glove as a thank you for showing us the world and everything and for all your experiences. And then this is just a thank you for that.
Thank you.
yourself to any food and beverage out in the hallway, and then please make your way to one of the community rooms. 8 people per group, and try to diversify your groups as much as possible. The only requirement I have is that 1 student is at each group, but I don't think we'll have a problem with that. So, again, thank you very much, and we'll be reconvening back in here at 7:45.